You know, we throw around the term stressed out all the time. But what is actually happening inside our heads when we feel that way? Well, it turns out that constant nagging pressure, it isn't just a feeling. It's literally physically rewiring your brain. So let's dive in and see exactly how.
So, does this look familiar to you? I mean, that feeling of being completely buried, just overwhelmed and kind of isolated from everything? If you're nodding along right now, trust me, you are not alone. That exact feeling is one of the biggest, most classic signs that your body is dealing with stress.
And hey, it goes way beyond just feeling overwhelmed, right? Maybe you're tossing and turning all night and can't get any good sleep. Or you find yourself getting super irritable, snapping at people for, no reason. Or, and this is a big one, you keep forgetting little things, like where you put your keys. These aren't just random, annoying quirks. Nope, they are all signals from your body screaming, hey, I'm under way too much pressure here.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight. Not all stress is the enemy. In fact, some of it can actually be good for us. The real trick, the challenge, is figuring out the difference between that helpful short-term boost and that relentless day-in, day-out grind that just wears you down.
So let's break this down. On one side, you've got that short-term burst. You know, the adrenaline rush you get before a big presentation or a sports game? That's the good stuff. It gives you extra energy, laser focus. But on the other side, you've got the continuous, chronic pressure. Being overworked, nonstop arguments, that's the day-in, day-out strain. And that is the kind of stress that really sinks its teeth in and starts to physically change your brain.
All right, so how does this rewiring actually work? Well, it all kicks off with your brain's own personal alarm system. Think of it like a fire alarm. It's fantastic for emergencies, designed to save your life. But what happens when that alarm just never shuts off? That's when you start running into some serious problems.
This whole process starts with a mouthful of a term, the hypothalamus-pituitary-adrenal axis. Yeah, I know, it sounds super complicated, so let's just call it the HPA axis. The easiest way to think about it is like a command chain in your body. It's just a series of glands that talk to each other to control that classic fight-or-flight response.
And it works in 3 pretty simple steps. Step 1, your brain sees something stressful. Could be a looming deadline, it could be a tiger, it doesn't care. Step 2, that HPA axis we just talked about, it gets activated instantly. The alarm is officially pulled. And then step 3, your body gets flooded with a hormone called cortisol, which is basically your fuel for instant action.
But here's a really important twist. Cortisol itself isn't the bad guy here, not at all. In short little bursts, it's absolutely crucial for our survival. The real problem, the danger, is when you have way too much cortisol pumping through your system for way too long. That's when it goes from helpful to harmful and starts to wreak havoc on your brain.
And when I say havoc, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it literally affects the size of your brain, its actual structure, and how it works. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this rewiring actually goes down.
Okay, first up, your fear center grows. Chronic stress basically puts your brain's fear center, a little part called the amygdala, on steroids. All that extra cortisol increases its activity and builds more connections in there. The result? You're basically stuck in a constant state of high alert, which makes you feel way more anxious and fearful all the time. And at the exact same time, your memory center gets weaker. As all that cortisol is flooding your system, the electrical signals in your hippocampus start to break down. And the hippocampus is a big deal. It's in charge of learning, memory, even controlling stress. The stress even makes it harder for new brain cells to grow there. Not good. And it doesn't stop there. All that cortisol can cause the CEO of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, to actually shrink. I mean, literally shrink. Too much cortisol makes you lose connections between brain cells in this area, which totally messes with your ability to concentrate, make good decisions, and even just handle social situations. So let's just recap that, because it's a lot. Your fear center gets bigger, which means more anxiety. Your memory center gets weaker, so it's harder to learn and remember stuff. And your control center shrinks, leading to bad decisions and poor concentration. It's like a triple whammy that completely changes how you think, feel, and act. But wait, the story gets even wilder, because it turns out the effects of stress might not even stop with you. There's evidence they can actually be passed down through generations.
Check out this incredible experiment they did with rats. Scientists watched 2 groups of rat moms. The first group were super nurturing, always licking and grooming their pups. Their babies grew up to be really chill, less sensitive to stress. And why? Because their little brains actually developed more receptors for cortisol, making them better at managing it. But the pups from the less attentive moms?
Totally opposite result. They grew up to be way more sensitive to stress for their entire lives.
So what in the world is going on here? How is this possible? Well, the mom's behavior didn't change the pup's actual DNA code. Instead, it caused something called epigenetic changes. The best way to think of this is like light switches for your genes. They don't change the wiring, they just control which genes get turned on or off. And here's the craziest part, which shows you the power of environment. If they swapped the pups, the changes were reversible. A pup from a neglected mom given to a nurturing one would grow up less stressed. But here is the absolute mind-blowing takeaway from this whole experiment. Those epigenetic changes from that one mother rat, they didn't just affect her immediate babies. They were passed down for generations. Think about that. Her behavior literally created a stress response that became a family inheritance.
Okay, after hearing all of that, you might be feeling a little, well, stressed out. I get it. But please stick with me because this next part is the most important thing you're going to hear. This damage is not permanent. You can absolutely fight back.
It's not all bad news, not by a long shot. Because just as your brain can be wired by stress, it can be rewired for resilience. And there are really powerful science-backed ways to reverse the damage and get back in the driver's seat.
So what are your most powerful weapons in this fight? It really boils down to two things: exercise and meditation. Exercise is just incredible. It has been shown to physically increase the size of your hippocampus, which directly fights back against the damage from stress and improves your memory. And meditation, with all that deep breathing and focused awareness, it's like a reset button for that HPA alarm system we talked about earlier. When you do them both, you can literally rebuild and rewire your brain for the better.
So here's the bottom line. Yes, chronic stress is powerful, and it can reshape your brain in some pretty negative ways. But you are more powerful. You have the ability to reshape it for the better. And managing stress isn't just about feeling less frazzled today, it's about protecting the health of your brain for the rest of your life. So, the only question left is, are you ready to take back control?